Before the pandemic, Turkey was trying to ward off a recession caused by mountainous debt, steep losses in the value of the lira, and rising inflation. But the crisis has sped up in recent weeks, primarily because of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's policies. The most recent crisis has been caused by Mr. Erdogan's direct interference in monetary policy, including his insistence on lowering interest rates in the face of staggering inflation, precisely the opposite of what economists prescribe. Low interest rates put more money into circulation and tend to drive up prices. In Turkey, the inflation rate has surged past 20% amid Mr. Erdogan's policies, and skyrocketing prices are causing misery among the poor and impoverishing the middle class. The country's currency has nosedived in recent weeks. Over the past year, the lira has lost more than 45% of its value. That steep decline means prices for much needed imported goods keep rising and the people struggling to afford food and fuel. As the lira slide continues, sporadic protests have broken around Turkey, and the opposition parties have called for a series of rallies to demand a change of government. Scores of people have been detained for joining street protests. Facing an election in 2023 and sliding in opinion polls, Mr. Erdogan has doubled down on his financial approach and seems convinced that his strategy will enable the economy to grow out of its problems. Most economists, however, say a crash is more likely. Mr. Erdogan unveiled an emergency plan to curb the lira's unprecedented depreciation and protect investors against wild swings in the currency. One measure guarantees that returns on lira-denominated deposits wouldn't fall short of bank interest rates in an effort to end current spot demand for foreign exchange. The Treasury will make up for losses incurred by holders of lira deposits should the lira's declines against hard currencies exceed bank interest rates. For example, if bank pays 15% for 1 year lira deposits, but the currency depreciates 20% against the dollar in the same period, the Treasury, that is the taxpayers, would pay deposit holders the differential. The instrument will apply for individuals holding lira deposit accounts with maturities between 3 to 12 months. The minimum interest rate will be the central bank's benchmark rate and no withholding tax will be implemented. But how is it going to help the lira to appreciate? If people who hold deposits in hard currencies decide to switch to the lira, it will help the Turkish currency curb losses that are fueling inflation and losing Erdogan support even among his most loyal voters. More than half of all the deposits in Turkish banking system are in hard currencies, according to banking watchdog data. Yet, because the average maturity of all accounts is only several weeks, it is unlikely that they will be converted en masse into new lira deposits. Now, what does it mean for inflation and public finances? Potentially, the Treasury takes on foreign currency risk of 3.3 trillion liras now deposited in retail banking accounts. If the lira depreciates beyond in deposit rates, that would impose a burden on the budget. If the central bank prints more money to make up the difference, then inflation would spike. Does this plan address the crux of the problem? While the worst may be over for lira for now, with some confidence restored among retail depositors, Todd Skubert, head of fixed income research at Bank of Singapore Limited, said, "Until interest rates provide a credible anchor against inflation, the lira will tend to be volatile and subject to downward pressure. Much will also depend on whether depositors believe the policy can actually be implemented," according to Braden McKenna, a currency strategist at Wells Fargo in New York. He said, "Right now Turkish institutions don't have a ton of credibility, so there may be challenges getting lira depositors on board." What could cause it to fall apart? If the new instrument fails, then the Treasury would have to find the money to compensate holders of lira deposits for their losses. The central bank in turn will likely print money, further undermining the lira, according to Wolfgango Piccoli, the co-president of the Teneo consultancy. He also added that if the new tool manages to stabilize the lira, the real exchange rate will rise, undermining the supposed competitiveness from a weaker currency that is key to boosting Turkey's exports, a pillar of the government's new economic model.